Builder here. Well, things are rapidly progressing with our hobby room renovation. Now it's time to put in the ceiling grid to hold the suspended ceiling tiles. The very first thing that I need to do is take these L brackets, and we just need to put them up around the outside perimeter of the room. Now, getting the first one up is really the challenge, and once you've got that one up, everything else goes lickety-split. Now, you want to get this one absolutely level, as close to level as you can get it, and because the whole room basically goes off of that point. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can get this first piece level. You can use a rotary laser and level it, and it'll shoot a track around the room, or you can do like I'm doing and just use an old-fashioned level, and that works just as well. The other thing you can do is just simply assume your ceiling's level, which in my case it isn't, I know that, but assuming your ceiling is level, then you can just simply measure down from the ceiling and go around the room that way, and everything turns out not too bad. Actually, mine's close enough to level. I could probably do a reasonable approximation. I might have to make an adjustment here and there to get things right, but I'm sure it would work out reasonably well. But anyways, step one, get these L brackets up around the perimeter of the room, and in and out of all your corners. I've got quite a few different corners to cut here, and then once the L brackets are in place, the next step would be to hang your T-bars, and then after that the ceiling tiles go inside and just drop inside the grid. So anyways, let's get started. Okay, the measurement on my second wall here is 90 1/8. I find it's usually best to start with the longest wall and work your way down from there. Just double check. Take yourself a little square, mark that off, and good pair of nice heavy tin snips works every time. Just get that little snip there, and do a little snip here. That should fit nicely up into this corner. Fits perfectly. Excellent. That's what I wanted to see. Always be careful with this stuff here, because it's real easy to take out a freshly painted wall. Okay, now at this particular juncture, it's really handy to know where your studs are. The reason why, in screwing these things, this track to the wall, you need something secure to screw it into. And of course, once you get down from where your plates are, you've got these open areas where the insulation is, and there's nothing to grab onto if you just go through the drywall. But you really need to have these secure, because they do support a little bit of weight. So if you don't know where your studs are, you need to figure that out. And it's really handy when you use a standard spacing like 16 or 32 inches, or 16 or 24 inches I mean. And then you can just come along and mark them off. And one thing that makes, okay, there we go. One thing that makes life a little easier if you can just simply, I have no idea where that thing wants to curve. Anyways, if you know where your studs are, you can just simply mark them off. Otherwise, you just need to find one. A couple of tricks you can use for finding studs. You can remember which side of your electrical box you put them on, and simply put a level up to the bottom here and measure that way. Or if you can find one and just measure 16 or 24 inches wherever you, whatever spacing you use, you should be able to hit the studs. And another trick I find that's handy to use is just take a nail or a punch and just poke a hole, unless you got self-drilling screws, of course, and then you don't need to do that. But if you just use something like a drywall screw, this metal's pretty tough to go through, so it's handy if you just poke a hole through it, or pre-drill it somehow so that the screw can catch and go right into the stud. You're not wasting a lot of time and effort trying to get that to go in. An easy method I like to use for piloting is just take a pair of pliers so you don't smack your fingers. Just take a short little nail, just put it up to where you want, and just give it a quick little whack. That's done. That should find the stud. Yeah. Alright, stay there. For some reason I want it to slide away on me. Thank you. There, done. And once you've piloted those holes, just a couple of quick screws here. You know, I really hate those new arc fault breakers. Now, when cutting the corners, it's really easy to do an inside corner because basically you just cut the metal straight and you simply overlap the joint just like that in the corner. Now, to do an outside corner, however, is a little different because what you need to do with an outside corner is you need to cut it back an inch on the one side, on the top side, and then when you set the other corner in, well, you need to cut that one back an inch as well, but you simply overlap it like that, okay, and then that goes on the outside of a corner. That way, all of your corners always end up looking nice and decent, like this. And okay, now that we've got our L angle all around the room, the next thing we have to do is plan for our ceiling grid and put things in. Now, I've made a little map here of what I'm planning to do. On this little map here, it's basically a really rough diagram of what the room looks like, and and the different lengths that I'm going to need. The yellow strips there represent the 12-foot main tees that I'm going to need 2 of those, and then the orange and yellow, or the orange and pink, I mean, they are 2-foot and 4-foot tees respectively, and you know, some of them I'm going to have to cut down to get them to fit in the various places, but you know, and then I've got these little black spots here, which are basically represent the various lengths of 2-foot tees that have been cut to different lengths, and they're just kind of filling in spots here. I'm going with a 6-foot perimeter all around the room, just because it looks a little neater, and it also gives me a better placement on my lights as well. So this is approximately how I plan to do things. I might have to adjust things as I go along, and yeah. So anyway, we'll start out by cutting our main tee, and then we'll put this row of 6-inch spacers along the edge here, or 12-inch spacers, I guess, along one edge, and then we'll just kind of cut things to fit as we go along. Now, one nice thing about doing a map like this is gives you a really good idea on how much material you're actually going to need as well, so there's not a whole lot of wastage. And if you're wondering as well, why did I buy this kind of piece and not that kind of piece, or 2 foots instead of 4 foots or whatever, you just refer to your map and use, oh, that's what I was thinking at the time. So anyways, let's get started. Okay, the very first thing you're going to do, just double check all your measurements and make sure you've got that right before you start. Okay, so we're looking at 132 1/4 to do the main run here. Okay, now these main tees are exactly 12 feet long. They've got tabs at the end which interlock so that you can connect these end to end and make longer runs. And they've also got slots every 6 inches for connecting in your cross pieces. Now, one thing to note is that the slots do start in 3 inches from the end, so that when you connect them end to end, there's 6 inches between the 2 slots. But we're not going to be using that, so we do need to cut off a bit, but because the slots are 3 inches in to start, in order to get our right measurement, we have to cut one end off at 9 inches and the other end off at 3 inches. That way we have the correct spacing on our cross pieces, and we also have our correct distance from the wall, because wherever these slots are, of course, that dictates where your cross pieces are going to go, and this will actually make it so I've got equal distance, a foot in at each end, which is what I want. So we're going to end up with an 11-inch piece here. Now, you can probably put away the power tools for this. The only thing you're going to need for this operation is measuring tape, maybe a square, and some good snips, because everything cuts quite nicely just by hand. And so what we're going to do here, we're just going to go, I need 132 1/4 inches, so we're just going to cut in there approximately a 1/4 inch past. These things are, do need a little bit of work, and then you just cut in from the side. Now, you want to get this cut fairly clean so that it sits nice and flat, but it's not incredibly critical because it actually does sit on top of the L, so you're not going to actually see the cut if it's not perfectly clean. So, and then just once you cut in all 3 ways there, just bend it a couple of times and it'll break off just like that. Now I've taken 9 inches off that end. That puts my slot right at the end, so that my first crossbar is going to be 12 inches in now, and I'm going to go cut 3 inches off the other end, and that'll set me up with the same thing. I'll have my first crossbar 1 foot in from the end, and that way everything's all nice and even. Okay, now with the ends cut off, I can now put my first piece in place. Just lift it up and set it in the track on the one edge, and then just carefully lift it up, set it in the track on the other end here, and just kick that out so that they're about even. I know I'm going to need about 1 foot away from the wall here, and then we can start getting some cross braces in here. I know I'm going to need several of these 1 foot pieces, so what I'm going to do next, I'm just going to take a bunch of 2 foot crossbars and just going to measure them out here, and I'm just going to cut a whole bunch in half at once because I know I'm going to need a whole bunch of them here, so just mark that out, take a square, and there we go. Another thing you can do, it's actually easier to mark it probably on the white part even. Easier to see than trying to mark it on the metal. And again, this part actually does hide, so again, it's not that critical. So just cut like so, and then just make sure you're lined up in 90 degrees, and in we go. These side ones are a little easier to cut than the main tees. Okay. Now I should probably mention that when you're actually cutting these, this part right here is where it locks in, but this part right here, this little lip here, little lip here, is where it actually rests on the crossbar, because it'll clip and lock in, and then this part here is where it actually rests. So when you're doing your measuring, make sure you measure from here and not from here, because if you measure from here, you're not going to get quite to the center, because this part here is where actually from here to the same spot on the other end is actually where your 24 inches is. So, but if you measure off of here, then you're not going to get your measurement correct. Sometimes in order to get the spacing right with your holes here, you actually need to be cutting both ends, and so you don't always need to keep the tabs, because sometimes they, you know, like I've got a little spot over here where both ends just simply rest in the L angles. Now that you've got a few of these clipped off, just have a quick look at your map, see where you need to put them. And I know I'm going to start 6 inches from the end here, so I'm going to go to my first hole, and I'm just going to simply snap that in and just push that over and just rest it on there. Now that's 12 inches apart there. Now from here on in, it's going to be every 2 feet, so I just count 4 holes, because they're 6 inches apart. That's 24 inches, and I just simply snap the next piece into place and rest it on the ledge. And now once these things are actually snapped in, they are actually pretty difficult to get out again. So you want to probably pay attention and make sure you actually get the proper hole, because they can be a little tricky to get out if you do happen to miss a hole. 1, 2, 3, 4. But yeah, just snap it in, rest it on the ledge, and all the way down the line. Okay, so the next thing I've done, I've already put my second 12-foot rail up in the ceiling, well, 11-foot rail. But before I go any further, I have to actually get some support in here, because one of the next things I need to do is get this light that's directly above me into the frame. Now, with the suspended ceiling, it's obviously suspended ceiling. It needs to have something to hold on to, and it doesn't hold a whole lot of weight. Like, I mean, it'll hold the weight of the grid just putting it up. But before you start to put any tiles or lights or anything with any significant weight into it, you've got to actually get it supported. Now, I've got these special screws here. They're eye-lags. They've got a hole in one end here, and then I've got this little tool here that is made to actually fit these eye-lags. It just goes in there and fits into the drill and puts them in for you, nice and easy. So I'm going to drill these into the joists above, and then I'm going to take this heavy gauge wire, and I'm going to tie up my my main rails, and at the end, before I hang tiles, I'm going to go put a whole bunch more in. But right now, I'm just interested in getting some support around where the lights are going to be, because I'm going to be putting the lights in place, and that's going to be entertaining, because I have to do that by myself. It's handy to have a partner when putting these things in, because you kind of have to spread the rail, and you have to balance the light up in there, and you have to squeeze the rail and then clip your crossbars in around it. So it can be kind of exciting doing it on your own. But that's the fun we're up to. But before I start doing that, I need to have some support. Otherwise, once I put the weight of the light in, the whole thing could just come collapsing down on me, and we don't want that to happen. So make sure you put these into framing that's above you. Don't just drill it into drywall or something that's got no structure behind it. Company I work for is doing a major repair right now at a building in town. They had a leaky roof, and it was just screwed into drywall. Well, the drywall got soggy, it doesn't hold anything, and the entire ceiling in the whole building came down. So yeah, it was just kind of a chain reaction. Once one part of it got going, the rest of it just, the whole ceiling came down in the whole store. So yeah, quite a mess. So you want to make sure that you put these legs into structure. Okay, I've screwed my leg into the joist above. And I'm just going to take this wire and we just go right through the hole here and up to the leg through the hole, and we just come back and got enough length we can do that a couple of times. So we'll just feed it back through and take up all the slack. Through the hole. There we go. And just tie that off, twist it off and cut off the excess. And do the same around the other side where the light's going to go. Do it at all four corners where the light's going to go. And on the other side, I haven't got the joist directly above the T-bar. I'm a little off to the side, so what I've actually done is there's a hole in the cross beam. I've connected to that hole in the cross beam, and I'm going to suspend it from there, and that'll be fairly close to where it needs to be supported. And that's what it should look like once you get them all in there. Okay, the final thing we need to do is actually put up our tiles. Now, I've got this ceiling tile here I actually made. These are some old ceiling tile panels. They came from, well, they're a style that was common back in the 60s and 70s, I guess. And there's a lot of people use these in their houses, and they're actually a 4 foot by 4 foot panel, and you just nailed them straight to the ceiling. But I've taken those old 4 foot panels, I've cut them into my 2 by 2 panels, and I'm cutting them custom fit for what I need. And it's actually working out quite well. Now to put your tile in, it's actually quite easy. Just simply take it, put it at a bit of an angle, just slip it up in between the rails, over, get it all the way up there, and it just back up and it just drops into place, and that's really all there is to it. Yeah, you'll have to cut them to fit wherever, but that's all there is to it. It's as easy as that. So have a good day.